this one's crazy. This one I updated for today. So 78% of organizations have adopted AI to support their operations. That stat in July was 67%. So you can see it's even higher number just, 6 or 7, 8 months later. Um, and from 2025 versus 2024, there was a 527% increase in AI search traffic. Now that's a huge number. But when it's a little bit of a tricky thing because, and I'll show some slides here. We have clients say they get 1,000 visitors from AI search a month, which is a lot. The previous year, maybe they were only getting 50, and that's how you get huge percentages like that. So it is leveling off a little bit this year. We're seeing still growing, but it's not growing at the same wild rate it was in 2025. So I'm just going to show some quick charts. These are from some of our clients, GA4, so you can see kind of the run from July 2024 to July 2025. You can see the growth. And there's going to be three of these here. Another example client. So the growth is exponential. It's still growing in 2026, just not to the same wild pace it was. We're only a few months in, so we'll see what the rest of the year brings, but so far that's what we're seeing. And aside from the growth, how is it impacting traffic? So traffic from AI is growing, but what about overall traffic? I think there's just a couple quick things to talk about here. So this is from an SEO industry leader. They did a big study that just a couple months ago in December 2025. So what they looked at was in December 2023, if you rank number one in Google for an informational search, so like, what is Parkinson's disease? Something really generic. You're not looking for a product. There's no purchase intent. You're just looking for an answer to a question. If you rank number one in December 2023, you had a 7.5% click-through rate, meaning your website would get traffic about 8% of the time. In December 2025, that number dropped basically in half to less than 4% of the time you'd get clicked. That's if you're ranking number one. When I started doing SEO years ago, Google's been adding more and more junk to the search results every year. That number used to be 30%. So it's really dropped a lot. Bear in mind, this is informational keywords, this specific statistic. So it's not that bad across the board. What we're seeing, if you look at Google search stats for an entire website, it's usually about a 15% reduction in click-through rate, which is a reduction. So all things equal, if you're not growing, if you're not improving your performance, your traffic from organic search is going to drop just by the fact that less people are clicking through to websites in general. On the flip side, this is data from a company called SuperPrompt. They do a lot of AI research. What they're seeing is traffic from LLMs converts at a way higher rate. So traffic from ChatGPT might convert at 14 or 15%. Their data cloud's converting at 17%. I can corroborate this. We've seen this with our clients as well. I've seen about the same numbers between 14 and 16%. Whereas Google search, I would say, it varies, but their stat was about 3%. I think that's on the high end. If you have a lot of traffic going to your blog, that's going to convert at a really low rate. Um, so while we're not seeing as much traffic from AI, I think there's an inherent trust when ChatGPT tells you this is the best plumber in Chicago, that carries more weight than when you Google best plumbers in Chicago, just because people trust these things more. And so by borrowing that trust, the conversion rate we're seeing so far is much, much higher. Okay, so getting to the important part, how do we actually optimize for these things? So if I think the last slide shows just how important it is to optimize for AI search. The value of the traffic is so high that a small amount of traffic from ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Google AI Overviews, Claude, Perplexity can have a huge value for your company. I'm not sure how familiar any of you are with SEO, but there's the good news is if you've invested some time and money in SEO, there's a lot of overlap. So you're probably, if you've done SEO for your company, you've probably already done a lot of the things you need to do to optimize for AI search. So high quality original content is still really important. A fast website is still important. Structured data, which is a technical programming language you put around your content, is still important. EAT signals. I'm going to go into these more in depth later. EAT is an acronym which I hate saying, but it's an SEO acronym which stands for expertise, experience, authority, and trust. Um, that's more important than ever. Clear content headings and hierarchy. So how well are you structuring your content in a way that's easy for people to read and now for machines to read is has always been important. It's still important. And then having a website structure where you have these hub pages and then you have these more niche topical clusters to support them, still really important, still a good practice. So I think that's the good news. There's a ton of overlap. It's just kind of changing around the edges, and we're going to get into some of those ways where you can push. If you're not doing SEO now, it's a great time to start. It's going to lay the foundation for AI search. And if you are, hopefully you can learn a few things to kind of push it a little bit further.
Hey, Ben,
Yes.
we've had a couple people ask if you have any data or any feeling or any information on B2B versus B2C with some of the stats that you were showing.
Um, You know, I don't work on a lot of the B2C clients. That's a few of other people on our team. The B2B stats, though, is where I've seen the 15% conversion rate from AI. Pretty typical from what I've seen so far. B2C, I'm not as familiar with the conversion rates, but the growth stats are similar. Like some of our e-commerce clients, they are seeing the same growth curve in traffic referrals. So the traffic for sure is the same across the board. I'm less sure about AI like e-commerce conversion rates, but we can follow up with a quick answer to that after the webinar because I could ask our colleagues. Good question. Starting with this, so we're going to start with a few key concepts. And I think this one here is the most important one to think about because it helps frame how you think about your entire website. So, your website is essentially your training data. Um, if you've read about AI at all, or if you're familiar with AI, you've heard probably them say each model has training data that kind of helps it answer questions. Um, so if you want to control how a model perceives your company, the best lever you have is your website. And you can use your website as the training data to improve AI's understanding of your business. What's your pricing? What services do you offer? What products do you offer? Things like what is your return policy? If you sell like software as a service, having a really robust knowledge base or API documentation can help AI really understand the nuances of your product. So, the New York Times just had an article about this last weekend, which I read, and there were some huge corporations. Their strategy has been to just like pump out tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of words about their companies to try and train the models. It is a slow approach, and you don't need to go that crazy with it. But if you think about your website and you're looking around and you see, oh, I don't really talk about XYZ aspects of my business. If you could map kind of those gaps, that alone is probably the best first step you could take. If you can look at your website and think, I don't know anything about this company except for what it says on the website, and kind of map out where do I have holes in the information, that is going to probably be the one thing you should take away from this webinar is to do that exercise because you probably do have some holes, that you're not quite explaining what you do, or you're not explaining what you do in enough detail, or you're missing a few things, or you do this thing. I mean, we've had clients who say this is really important for us as a company, and they barely talk about it on their website. So trying to evaluate, do how much are we talking about the thing that's really important to our business? Is I think a really critical thing to understand. Um, Another one, keeping your information consistent, so accurate. And this is for larger websites, they would call this governance. So if you have information over here that says, our return policy is X, and information over here that says our return policy is Y, that creates a distrust, and the bots don't quite know what to do with that information. Similarly, if people see it, they don't quite know what to do with that information. So having consistent information, your hours of operation, your location, is an important thing to kind of keep in mind when you are managing your website. If you have a large website, this can be really complex and complicated. If you have a small website, it's much easier to kind of keep under wraps. Further is better, which is also essentially a governance. So if you want to be cited, um, this stat here, AI platforms tend content that is 5 minutes and older content. Um, Google's always had this preference, AI is even more so. So if you have a really important article that you haven't updated in 3 years, it's a great time to do that. Find those old articles that are still performing well and give them a fresh, meaningful update. Not only update them, but then leave a note at the top, which I'll show you later, to show when you last reviewed and updated that content. That's a signal both to people and to the bots that this has been updated, it's been reviewed recently. It's a fresh piece of written content, and that's another theme too, I think, isn't in this presentation, but a lot of these practices, they're good for people too. So we're optimizing for AI and LLMs and the bots out there. But this is also going to make your website probably a better experience for the humans out there who are still navigating the web. So I think it makes this all a win-win. So we're back to this EAT acronym. It's never been more relevant. Um, because Google already wanted content that was written by people who have experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and they see as trustworthy. So that can be a large, notable brand, or it can be a smaller company that has really positioned itself well in a certain niche. AI has the same inclination because if you think about Google has all these complex external link factors that kind of help them judge like the external quality. AI has some of that too. They can see reviews across the web. They look at Reddit and Quora for some external signals. But they really, when they're evaluating your content, they have really nothing to judge it on. So how can we make it easy for them to view us as a trusted source of information? I think is a good way to think about everything you do from a marketing perspective, to look at it and say, how authoritative is this? How trustworthy is this? Am I showing expertise and experience? Is a good lens to look through things. And then I think the last one, be original. This Google search, and I'm talking SEO, but I think it's important for AI as well, and just marketing in general. They have a facet of their algorithm called topical originality. How original is this page on the internet compared to all the other pages? And if it's more original, it gets graded much higher, meaning it's much more likely to show up in search, which can give you a leg up against larger brands who have huge budgets and huge domain authority. So originality is honestly, it's our biggest lever we have to show up in both AI search and Google search. And how do we do that? Um, it's different depending on what you're trying to what your website or page is trying to do. But think about doing your own first party research and having your own statistics. That's original. Creating something new. Having a quote from experts on your team. That's something new that you can do. Things like that. Having a mini case study that's creating and that's showing expertise and experience, and it's also creating something new. So I think that's a good way, and because we're talking about optimizing for AI, but anyone can use AI to spin up a really long, well-written article on pretty much anything. So in a world where it's never been easier to create marketing content, informational content, technical content, um, it's it, this original factor is what really differentiates you from everybody else on the internet who's going to ChatGPT who's like, write me an article on XYZ. So this is our kind of differentiator. So always keep this in mind as you're creating marketing pieces for your company. So we're going to go into what is EEAT. So experience. Does the person creating it, oops, have first-hand experience with the topic? So who's creating it? And that could be either the company or the individual. It kind of factors in both. And the expertise, does the creator have deep knowledge or credentials? So in worlds like medicine, if the author is a doctor, it's much more likely to perform well in search than if the author is a generic insurance company with no person attributed to it. So I think one thing here is anytime you're writing an article on your website, attribute it to a person no matter what, and that will give you a little bit of an advantage versus attributing it to generic XYZ company marketing team or whatever, or no author. So always use a real person as the author. Um, Authoritativeness. So is this person or is this website a recognized brand or trusted source? So you don't have to be like a huge Fortune 500 to be authoritative. As you create good, helpful content over time, you can develop yourself as an authoritative source. Maybe you've done that already. Our company has written a lot on different ways to use Google Analytics and Google Tag Manager. And because Google sees us, they see us as an expert in all things analytics. So anytime we write a post about it, we almost always rank on the first page almost immediately, because we've spent time kind of curating this authoritativeness. So you don't have to be a big company to kind of tick this box. It just takes time and effort. And then
Hey,
last,
Ben, sorry.
yes,
Uh, we've had several questions of people asking about images.
okay.
Um, and if a graph is in an image or if you have an infographic, is that going to uh, contribute to your EAT and your or EEAT and just to the content in general?
Um, so yes and no. The infographics are tricky because they're always usually big images or PDFs. If you have those, the image itself is something original, and the work you like, if you have especially numbers or statistics in the infographic, what I would do is post that infographic along with an article that kind of explains everything that's in it. So then you have the two things. You have the infographic, and then you have the article that it lives with. I think that's the best practice there. For a chart, a screenshot of a chart isn't ideal. Um, if you have to do a screenshot of a chart, put the statistic in the alt text. So when you should be using alt text anyway, especially if an image conveys any sort of information. So you'd put the statistic in the alt text or as a caption. But even more ideal, there's all sorts of chart ways to create charts on your website, which are admittedly complicated. And but you can actually add like chart schema to your website, which we'll get into schema in a little bit. That would be the best way to do it. But if you can't do that, then an alt text or a caption on the chart would be the kind of the backup option. Okay, trustworthiness. So, you know, when an AI platform, your company in their results, you're kind of borrowing the trust the user has from them. So because of that, they want to have some trust in what you're saying. So can they validate the information that you're saying? Um, do you have you know, how secure is your site? Where are you sourcing your information? Are you citing your sources? How transparent are you? There's more angles. We'll go into this in a little bit more, but trustworthiness is a really important factor to think about too when optimizing for EEAT. So here's on the left side, we have some kind of traditional SEO tactics. On the right side, we have how these have changed for AI. And we're going to go through a couple of these. So keywords, if you're even a little bit familiar with SEO, you've heard people talk about keywords. Keywords are still important, but with AI, you don't need to hammer them over the head with the keywords. Uh, they prefer a little bit more natural language, but keywords are still important. We still want to use them. The good thing is Google's been moving this way for years. So there's kind of some good overlap there, but natural language is really important. Um, Optimizing a page. So it's still important to optimize an entire page, but for AI, you can think about your pages in chunks because they read everything in snippets. So it might be that they might not like your entire page, but maybe there's one thing on the page that they really think is interesting, and they'll cite that in one of their answers to users of their platform. So the whole page still matters, but thinking about it in what are the chunks on our page that kind of can answer other questions as well. Link building, a lot of SEO people for years have been pushing link building. External links are really important. In the AI world, instead of external links, the lingo is a citation. So when you get linked to from an AI platform, they call that a citation. I'm not sure why they don't call it a link, why they changed the word, but they're calling that a citation now. So how do we, instead of optimizing for links from other people or spending time emailing people asking for links, how do we optimize for links from these AI platforms? And then keyword research, still important thing to do, but a new kind of way to look at this is what Google calls query fan out. I know that's a weird sounding term, but I'm actually going to show you what that is here in a second. Okay.
Ben, before you go,
Yes. Yes.
um, if you can go back to the previous slide.
Okay.
So traditional SEO, you do not use hidden text, right? That's a
Correct.
big, big no-no in
Yeah.
traditional SEO. Any
Yeah.
idea with the LLMs?
Uh, I mean, you could, but then you're going to get in trouble with Google for doing it. So I would say no, don't do that. If you're hiding text,
So
you,
by hiding text, we mean having white text on a white background. So it's there, but humans can't see it. And that's a super bad SEO. Uh,
yeah, it can get your site banned by Google. So even if it helped with AI, if you get banned by Google, man, that's going to be a hit to your website. So I wouldn't mess around with stuff like that. There's a lot of gimmicks that you could do, but there's usually like a more appropriate way to do the same thing that would probably have a better impact in the long term anyway. Okay, so we're going to go through um, a few examples. I'm going to show you query fan out. Then we're going to show you like how to do some specific things, just so you guys can kind of see some of this stuff in practice. So first, query fan out. This is a quote from Google. AI mode uses our query fan out technique, breaking down your question into subtopics and issuing a multitude of queries simultaneously on your behalf. Basically, what they're saying is when you do a Google search or Gemini, whatever, they do multiple searches at once, and their Google AI overview will kind of cover multiple topics. So here's a screenshot of what is Parkinson's disease. So as if you're trying to optimize for this topic, looking at how the AI overview, you could do this with different LLM platforms too. Search for the topic you want to optimize around, or say you want your company to show up for XYZ topic. Do some prompting, do some Google searches. How are they structuring their answer? So in this example, how Google structures its answer is kind of like a cheat code into seeing what they think is important for this topic. So you can see here's key aspects. So they think that these are important things. motor symptoms, non-motor symptoms, causes, treatment, progression. So if you're going to have a page where you write about Parkinson's disease, you should probably cover these topics because Google seems to think that they're relevant to the parent topic. If I were doing it, I would probably do a few searches or look on a few different platforms to get a more robust picture of the different subtopics. But this is just one example of some quick research you can do into how does AI think about the topic that I care about. While we have this up, I wanted to point out these green arrows. These are what we're calling citations in this new AI lingo. So this column on the right, these are all citations. They're links to external sites. These little +4 and +5 here, these are the citations as well. So when we talk about citations anywhere throughout the rest of this presentation, this is kind of what we're referring to. The other AI platforms do a similar thing where they have the same links here. Okay. All right, so here we're looking at how to optimize for answers, which is basically if you were shown it, if your brand was in here and was mentioned by name, like say the search was a little bit different, like what are organizations who can help with Parkinson's disease? Instead of this structure, it would probably mention specific organizations. So how do we show up as a company or organization that gets mentioned? So in this example, um, what is Parkinson's disease question? We're going to look at this. So this is the existing, we work with a client in Parkinson's disease. That's why we're going to have so many Parkinson's disease examples here. Um, very good answer. This was their existing answer about what is Parkinson's disease. There's nothing inherently wrong with it, except it's, one big paragraph. So it's harder to read. It is very thorough. And that has really long sentence structure. That's a thing too. It makes it hard for people to read. I'm sure you're the same way. You're reading a book or something online and the sentences are really long. It's just hard to keep in your mind what the actual through line is. So when we have a specific question we're trying to answer, if we're answering it with a really long sentence that is nuanced, we're way less likely to be cited as an answer. When you're answering a question, you want to be direct and then followed up with the nuance. So let's answer our questions directly. So be direct, I think, is a big takeaway here. Now, restructuring this, I just highlighted kind of the most important parts here. So we have a more direct answer into what is Parkinson's disease. And then we broke this out into bullets, the important factors, to make it easier to see really at a glance. Um, and that's kind of it's kind of that simple, or it can be anyway. Make things easier to read, be direct, answer the question, read your answer to the question, and think, am I being direct enough, or am I dancing around a little bit? If you're dancing around, you're never going to get cited by an AI platform as the person who has the answer to this question. Um, the next one we're looking at is citation worthiness. So how likely are you to get a link from an AI platform? Here's the existing kind of Parkinson's disease statistics section. So they have Parkinson's disease is the fastest growing neurodegenerative disease in the world, and we have a link to that source there, which is great. Estimated 1 million people in US living with Parkinson's. Every 6 minutes, someone's diagnosed with Parkinson's. At average age of diagnosis is 60 years old. Again, these are solid, but there's no dates attached with these. So if I was an AI model or a person, I don't know when these stats are from. And there's only one citation is good, like the one external link is good, but we could have more. So just a quick update, putting the links where we're getting this information with the date is a really immediate signal. Here's where we got the information. Here's how recent it is. And then I highlighted these to show the kind of the main difference. And then I also highlighted this approximately 90,000 Americans are diagnosed annually. That's basically the same stat as every 6 minutes, but an AI model is more likely to cite a number like that than they are every 6 minutes sort of number. So it's the same statistic, just reframed. Um, so this is just an example of how to improve the likelihood that you're going to get linked to from an AI. And the big takeaway here is showing our work, showing our sources and how recent they are. Um, Here's another one, a paragraph about how it's diagnosed. Similar as the first example, we have a pretty thick paragraph, a lot of good internal links, a lot of good SEO best practices taking place here. Not inherently wrong. Again, this website's already really optimized. I think it's an example of you can do really great work with SEO and still push it a little bit further to optimize for AI. Um, re rejiggering it a little bit here. So one big important thing here. So adding this call out at the top, medically reviewed by APDA Scientific Advisory Board, and when that was last updated. So here we're kind of trying to convey trust and expertise. It was reviewed by a scientific advisory board. We're not just some person on the internet writing about this, really delicate thing, health topic. And then last updated March 2025. Again, we have a signal saying this is relatively recent. It's not from 2015. The science has probably changed since then. It's been recently reviewed and updated. So instead of a big paragraph, we have these key points about diagnosis. So making it easier to read. If you're on your phone and you're trying to research a topic, um, having some, unless it's like a really narrative style article or, it's easier to break up the content and make it easier to read this way. And then it also helps AI ingest the information as well. And then at the end, we added a quote from the Scientific Advisory Board. This is what I was kind of saying, adding that extra element of originality and expertise. It's going to convey trust. We're kind of trying to tick as many of those boxes around expertise, authority, and trust as we can. So this is where if you're a business and you have people at your business who are experts, as simple of a thing as just quoting them conveys so much more than just talking about something generically from a marketing perspective or from a company's perspective. So that's something to keep in mind as a really simple way to kind of make your stuff more original, make it more trustworthy.
Hey, Ben, a related
Yes,
question.
yes,
What about external? Let's say somebody in your company is quoted in the media.
yeah.
Um, how best to leverage that?
Well, the good news is those external quotes, these models, they're ingesting all this information into them when they do what. So say you just got quoted last week. That's not going to be in the most recent models because their training data is like about 3 to 4 to 6 months delayed. But in a few months, they're going to have that in their training data, and they're going to see that sort of like Google's index. They have this index of, they train them on pretty much everything on the internet. They're going to see that, and it's going to flag them as, oh, here's this company is getting mentioned here. So these external mentions are important. Um, can you leverage it? I mean, leveraging on your website's a little bit trickier. You could leverage it on social media. You could write a post about it and say how you were featured, and you could have some logos on your website about all the different publications you've been featured in. Um, but those ways, they might convey trust and that you guys have good connections with, respected organizations, but they're not necessarily going to be a straightforward line to like, you're not going to leverage it from like a SEO or AI optimization perspective in that way. Um, okay, moving on to how to convey trust, which is really important. Some of these things are really easy things you can do with your website if you haven't yet. So social proof, do we have testimonials on our website? Do we have case studies on our website? One thing we're doing with clients, we really started kind of mid last year, is, don't separate the case studies over here and your services or products over here. Or products, it would be reviews. But if you're selling services, write a little mini case study on your services page that can help differentiate it from all the other, people who sell the same service. I think is a really quick way. It doesn't have to be super in depth. It can just be like, here was the situation, here's what we did. And if you cater to different industries, that could be a good way to kind of tout that on your services pages. So testimonials and case studies, important just for in general, but also for AI search. Legal pages, Um, if you don't have a terms and conditions, if you don't have a privacy policy, if you're e-commerce, you don't have a return policy, um, you're going to get downgraded a little bit from a trust factor for not having those. Um, and this is something that's been the case for SEO for years. Google has manual quality graders who go out and grade search results, and then they go to your website and they actually grade your website on these factors, and it weights how trustworthy your entire domain is. So these legal pages, while they might seem like, oh, it's legal, who cares? They're not they're not they're not actually acquiring customers. They do kind of lay this foundation of trust that's really important. Um, Anytime you can be transparent about your pricing, that's hard to do with services, I understand, and we've kind of always struggled with that. But how do you get any sort of indication about pricing can really also help convey trust and transparency. Another thing is that your contact information is easy to find. I don't know how many times I know, say you're looking to buy something and you find this website and they're selling what you want to buy, but you've never heard of this website before, and you're like, well, let me see where they're located. And you look all around their site and you can't find their address or phone number or email. That's suspect. The bots view that the same way. So make your contact information really easy to find. Put it in your footer, put it in your about page. There's no reason to hide it. That's a really simple thing you can do. And then an about page. I think showing real people, here's the people who work here. There's nothing I dislike more than when a company uses stock photos on their about page, because that is not who you are. You are not these people in these stock photos. So on your about page or on your other pages, real people also conveys trust. So simple things to do, very important. Um, Now we're going to get into some more boring technical details. So bear with me here, but these are important. There's a little bit more tactical, less strategic, but we're just going to go through some of the technical aspects of how to make sure your website's optimized for AI search. And a lot of these, again, have overlap with SEO if you've done SEO in the past. So indexability and rendering. So can the bots index your website? This is the same thing with Google. You can actually block bots from accessing your pages. Most companies don't do it on purpose. I can't tell you how many times we've seen a website accidentally blocking robots. The most vulnerable time is, say you're launching a new website, the developer can just forget to remove the blocking robots tag. We've seen that. I've seen that a dozen times in my career, and it's really bad to do that, and it's a super small thing to fix. So just making sure your site's not blocked by robots. Site speed. Is your site fast? How well do you do on core web vitals, which is kind of a rubric that Google came up with to kind of score how fast and user friendly your site is. You can see your core web vital performance in Google Search Console, which is a free tool they offer. You can also go to Google Page Speed Insights and they'll show you core web vital scores as well. I don't have the links in here to that, but we can follow up with those if people want to get those, or Rod, if you can pop them in the chat maybe for the page speed insights. Another important thing is structured data, also known as schema, schema.org. So anytime you see reviews in Google search, or you see events in a Google search, or you see like recipes, how Google has the nice display of how recipes look, that's all driven by structured data known as schema. So it's been around. I think it was actually created around the time I started doing SEO around 2013. It was new then, so it's been around for 13 years. Um, AI likes structured data because it gives it um, really specific what this page is about. AI likes structure information. So you take your web page and then you say these elements on the page are specifically XYZ. I think I have a slide about that. I'm going to skip to that. So some examples of structured data could be your organization's name and address and contact information. Or if you're a local business, then there's more specific, there's local business schema. There are other subtypes too, like medical practice, hospital, things like that. Your website and your web pages, there's website structured data, there's web page structured data, and then breadcrumbs, the little links, the breadcrumb links at the top of a web page, there's structured data for that as well. If you have FAQs, that can be marked up in structured data. Q&As, so if you're like a Reddit style forum, that can be marked up. So event schema, some less common types. Um, Event schema, if you're having events for your company, you can mark those up in event schema. Um, and those are more likely to show up in search results for if people are searching for local events. Another one I left off here, but is similar, is job listing schema. If you are posting jobs on your website, if you notice, if you do a job search, Google will put the job listing in the top. Um, so these are just, different ways, different types of schema. Products, most e-commerce platforms have schema baked in, so you don't really have to worry about it. But if you do sell e-commerce product and aggregate rating, so your reviews should be marked up if they're not. And then person and service. So if you have a service, you can actually mark up your service in this schema markup language. It's not very common. So if you're doing it, it kind of give you a leg up on the competitors. And then person on your blog, your authors could have person schema, which would say um, what's good about the person scheme is it says this is their name. It might have their contact information. And then there's a thing called same as, where then you could put your Twitter profile, your LinkedIn profile. So that associates your people who write for your company with this real world person over here. And that kind of creates this like network of authoritativeness, which is kind of helps build up their individual authoritativeness, and in turn, your company can borrow that when they write on your blog. So I skipped a slide to go over that. So some quick rules to make sure, going back to indexing your site, that AI can access your site. So don't block robots. If you're blocking robots, they're not going to be able to see anything on your website. There's also a new tag called no snippet. You're probably not using those, but it's available. Say you had something proprietary, you didn't, and it's out there on the internet openly, but you don't want AI quoting it, you can add this no snippet tag around things. Um, Using canonical tags. So if you have a couple versions of the same page, they're just a little bit different. A canonical tag tells the bots, this version over here is the main version we want you to look at. And then using internal links and descriptive anchor text, so that link text being descriptive helps them understand how everything is related to each other. So AI builds this giant model of your website, and the internal links help them understand how everything kind of fits together. Also, bonus, non-descriptive link text is bad for accessibility. So it's good for SEO, it's good for AI to avoid using link text such as read more, learn more, anything generic where you don't know, if you didn't know where you were linking to, could you discern what the page is about just from that link text? So it's a bonus to opt to, put some thought into your link text because it also improves your website's accessibility as well. Okay, so that concludes kind of like how to optimize. We just went through some quick examples. Now we're going to look at how do you actually see the traffic from these new platforms to your website. I'm sure a lot of you use Google Analytics. I'm going to show you some screenshots from that. I think we also wrote a post, Rod, if you want to dig that up about how to see GA4 traffic and AI traffic in GA4 and put that in the chat as well. Um, while we're doing this. I wrote a quick just
You mean the
tutorial.
blog post?
Yeah, the blog post.
Okay.
I wrote a quick tutorial about how to add a custom way to kind of see it a lot easier. Um, so an easy thing to do is look in GA4 and see. So, if you're spending time on this, or if you're just curious, how are we doing in AI? One, you can look in GA4 and see, are we getting referrals from ChatGPT or Perplexity or Claude, and are they growing over time? It's really important. Um, you can use tools to see Google AI overview performance. A lot of SEO tools offer this now. We use a tool called SEO Monitor. There are other tools out there, or if you're partnering with an SEO agency, they could be sharing this information with you. It's harder to see Google AI overview performance across the board unless you're using some sort of paid tool. And you can also monitor. So aside from Google AI overviews, there are tools out there to monitor your AI visibility, is what we call it. So are we being mentioned by AI platforms for XYZ topics, or are we being cited by them? The tools usually look at both, like mentions and the citations. So how to see your traffic in GA4? You can follow the guide Rod's going to put in the chat, but the easiest way to do it, go to uh, in GA4 when you're looking at uh, you know the ways people get to your site in the acquisition report. There's a little button here to click to add a secondary dimension. You can just add source. So you want to look at referral traffic because it's going to show up as referral traffic. So you can see in referrals we have all these other referrals here that aren't AI, but the highlighted ones, these are sessions from ChatGPT, from Perplexity, from Gemini. That's kind of your traffic there. Uh, and if you want to see which content on your website is being cited by AI, you would look at which pages are they landing on. So from these sources, so from ChatGPT, which pages do they land on? Ignore not set. Not set's kind of a weird quirk of GA4, but you can see these are the posts on our website where most of the AI entrances start. Um, so you can kind of get a sense for like what topics are we showing up for in AI and where on our website are they landing. This is a screenshot from our SEO software that shows Google or keywords that have a Google AI overview and whether or not it just kind of has this little star next to it when our client is showing up in the Google AI overview. So here's 5 keywords. 4 of the 5, our client is in the AI overview, and in this one they are not. So this is just an example. There are tools out there that will give you this information where you can see, you know, in my keyword market, which ones have Google AI overviews and which ones are we in or are we not in, and are our competitors in them. And then are you monitoring your visibility? So there are a lot of tools out there where you can pay monthly. We actually created our own tool for this to see how are we performing in Claude, OpenAI, ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity, and how are we performing over time? So, monitoring what topics you want to show up for. So your business's services, how often are you showing up in prompts related to those, and on what platforms, and how are you trending over time?
It,
If you don't have, yes, Brad?
I'm sorry, Ben. I thought you were done.
No, it's
Can you go
okay.
back to slide 39 and we have a question of where can we find the info shown on that slide?
So this column, organic AI on the left, if you follow the guide that Rod shared, it will create that as a channel in GA4. And then you can add landing pages as a secondary dimension, and you will see then the pages. So it requires a little bit of work. The guides, you know, now that I know how to do it, I can do it in 2 minutes. But if you're a novice to GA4, it might take you 15 or 20 minutes to walk through it all. But unfortunately, GA4 is not an easy tool to use. So it's not easy information to surface. You have to do a little bit of work to see it, unfortunately. Okay, and last, just a few new technologies or emerging technologies to keep an eye on. They're kind of on our radar, and we want to talk about them now, just so you are, as business people, are aware of them too. So this one might, if you're familiar with AI, you might have heard of this one. It's been out. I think it was fall 2024 when Anthropic created Model Context Protocol, most commonly known as MCP. It basically allows LLMs to connect to APIs, websites, file systems, third-party apps. Think of it like a USB-C port for AI applications. It allows them to use other things as a tool to help improve whatever you're asking it to do. So it's a way to connect AI to other applications and information. Um, you can read more from Anthropic there. If you use Claude or ChatGPT and they have these connections, those are kind of powered by MCP. A brand new uh, technology just released by Google a couple of weeks ago. It's called WebMCP. What that does is, well, actually, AI can browse the web now. There are these AI agents, and when they use a browser, it's kind of funny what they do. They take a screenshot of the page, and then they use their vision learning and guess what they need to click on, and then they click on it. But if they guessed wrong, they have to go back, take another screenshot of the page. So it's really clunky. And it uses a ton of tokens. It's not very, it's getting better, but it's slow and not the best way for bots to kind of navigate the web. So Google came out with called WebMCP. What it does is it decorates elements like buttons and forms and your shopping cart, and it says like basically this is a button, here's where it goes, or this is a form, here's how to fill it out. It turns your website kind of into a tool, which when things are a tool, it makes it easier for AI to use. So this could be a big thing if say a year from now, and AI agents are more common. This new type of markup for your website could be really important to have it be optimized for agents to use. Because no doubt they're going to prefer to use websites that are easier for them to use. Um,
This
that's a
is,
brand new,
I'll just jump in for just very briefly and say this is one of the reasons why we recommend your website be on one of the major platforms. WordPress, not Spotify, Shopify, um, any Wix, Weebly, any of the major ones, because they are going to be implementing these new technologies. If you're on a you know uh, a custom system that's uh, sending out your website, you're going to be kind of behind. So if you're thinking about building a website or rebuilding your website, make sure you're on a major platform because they're going to be able to implement this technology sooner than any small niche little CRM.
yeah, yeah, good point, Rob. Google Universal Commerce Protocol, also known as UCP. Google just released this. I think it was in December. So all again, very recently, it's a new open standard to help you buy things directly through AI, whether that's a chatbot or Google AI mode. Right now, it works with Gemini and Google AI mode, but it will no doubt work with other models soon. The good thing is, if you sell e-commerce products, uh, you should probably have Google Merchant Center set up already, and they're going to use that same platform to add the additional AI UCP functionality. So it wouldn't be a big lift to update your Merchant Center. But if you're e-commerce, this is definitely something to keep an eye on. It's really new now. I don't even know that Google's finished rolling it out yet. They've just announced it, but keep this on your radar too if you sell products online. The last one, kind of just a funny one. I don't know if anyone's seen this in the news. About a month ago or 3 weeks ago, everyone in the media was talking about it in the programming circles. There's, a new AI assistant called Claude OpenClaw, that people were installing and having these agents do all sorts of crazy stuff for them on their behalf 24 hours a day. It was basically you'd host it on your own computer and you could chat with it and have it do things for you. Um, and people were doing pretty amazing things with it. However, it also has like huge security vulnerabilities, so we don't recommend using it. But I do think this is just a sign of, the bigger companies are going to release things like this in the coming year, which means there's probably going to be a lot more AI agents out there on the internet doing things on behalf of people for sure.
So an example of this is the goal is that you will have your own AI agent. And let's say you want to take a vacation to Niagara Falls. In the morning, you just tell your AI agent that, uh, hey, I want to go to Niagara Falls from this date to this date. I want to stay in a hotel that's between $200 and $250 a night, and I want a boat tour and blah, 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 blah. You tell it what you want, and the bot will go out. This is the goal. The bot will go out and do all of that for you. So let's say you're the tour operator. If your tour site can't talk to those bots, um, you're going to get left out. So that's why we're saying stay on major platforms because they're going to have those systems first and foremost. They're going to be uh, making sure that the people who are building websites on their platforms can talk to these AI assistants. And this, I don't want to make it sound like that's here now. It's not. The closest is OpenClaw.
Mm.
And it can do some amazing, amazing things. But could it do that example I just said? No, because the infrastructure isn't there yet.
Mm. Yeah, and I think that's the last slide. So ready to open up for additional questions. We got plenty of time left.
Okay, so we have a question of could you explain in layman terms what an AI agent is? And that I think that's what I just did, of just saying it's your online assistant, and the goal is for you to be able to just talk to it in regular language, probably with your voice, and say, I want to research how to start a coconut farm in the Philippines. And you just let it go and it goes off and does that. And, make sure to tell me the pluses and minuses of it and give me an analysis of the uh, coconut market and what I can do with my coconuts. And the AI agent will go out and do all of that for you. That is something that OpenClaw could probably do for you now because it's just research. But if
Yeah.
it's about booking tickets and signing you up for things, talking to your doctor and getting an appointment and confirming it, that's a ways away still.
Rod is researching retiring on a coconut farm. That's why that example was top of mind.
Tea, actually, but
Wow,
um,
may I ask a little bit more about this?
Yeah, sure.
So my name is Juan Carlos. I am the owner of Featherstone, a marketing and storytelling agency. And I was looking at the news about what was going on with the bots and whatnot. It does feel a little apocalyptic, to be honest. But
Yeah.
I also wanna, come into it with with an open mindset that maybe the future is not as scary as we think it could be. And so on one hand, I definitely see the benefit of having all of this on, for lack of a better term, automation, if you will, and sort of like autonomy of, things being done. But like from your professional, lens, how does that, like, what risks does that pose to both our own businesses, but also to our own like persona as people and the
Mm.
like the I guess the more private things like bank accounts and passwords and things along those lines that are a security risk.
Yeah. And we're not advocating you guys use AI agents. I think we're more saying people in the coming, who knows what timeline, year, 2 years, probably will start using them. And so it's not so much we're advocating your business use these things at all. It's more so that your website be positioned to be ready for that moment. So when consumers, people, start using them to do tasks for them, you can be be there to accept that business. I understand your point because it's sort of like, if you are using these agents to like optimize your business, maybe you're like trying to reduce your workforce or something. And we're not necessarily saying that's not what we're talking about at all. We're really just saying, is your website positioned in a way to be ready for this change or not? Whether you embrace it personally or not doesn't really factor into it. It's more so, can my business continue to get customers in this world where not all the people on the internet are people, you know?
Yeah. And I would say part of what I'm saying is we get a lot of companies coming to us, and they want SEO or AIO, and we look at it and they're on a custom CRM that is very,
CMS.
very specific. Or it is, let's say you're a dentist and you're on your website was built by dentistwebsitesareus.com, and they only have their own CRM. That's boxing you in and making it perhaps more difficult. Depends on how big, dentistwebsitesareus.com is, but you're in a world where you may not be able to react to what's coming down the road with AI. So talk to whoever built your website, find out, you know, are tools, being made for schema, for example. If there are not tools to help you put schema on your website, um, you need to be thinking about how future focused the platform is. Is that fair, Ben? Am I
Yeah.
Thanks, y'all.
okay? We have another question. How for schema, how do I code the top level menu item on a services page when it's more of an overview, whereas the other pages are about specific services?
I would say you could skip that, especially if you're manually adding the schema to the page in like an HTML block or something. If it doesn't provide value, you don't necessarily have to have it because a lot of times like services overview pages are mostly just like a hub to link out. They're like navigational tools. So I would say you could just skip that page and just focus on the sub pages.
Next question. So, should we be generating content that's written for humans, or should we be writing content that's designed for AI to consume? Is there an overlap? Will the models that are most human win? What are you guys seeing from a content development these days?
I think I think you can go overboard with any of these optimizations, and a lot of people in my world do that, or they over optimize and it makes it not as good of a user experience. So you can push any of these things too far and make it not very human friendly. And I would argue it might not if you're doing things too extreme, you're probably not doing it well anyway. But I think there's a lot of overlap in the practices we covered today for how to optimize for AI and humans and what they want to. So if we're making the page easier to read, that's good for people too. If we are trying to make it more trustworthy, that's good for people too. You're probably going to improve your conversion rates if you're focusing on conveying your expertise and trust and authority. You're going to create a better user experience. I think the difference is the way the bots kind of uh, they go about it in a more machine way, you know. They're ingesting the information like a machine does, but the same things can kind of help both. But I really think this is important. You can always push things way too far. You could have too many bullets, too many headings, so, there is a balance there. And these machines can read, so, it's not like one long paragraph on the page is bad. We were just using those as examples to kind of illustrate the point for the webinar purpose of the webinar.
Yeah. So next question, can you give some rough numbers? So not just our pricing, but rough numbers of what getting GA4 set up might cost?
Well, I mean, you could follow that guide if you just want to see traffic from AI like you saw in those slides. You could follow that blog post. I don't know if Rod, if you put it in the chat.
Yeah, I did.
yeah, it's super easy to do. Or, if you're not very technical or you don't have access to GA4, just send it to whoever on your team does, and they could probably walk through it. It's really only a few steps.
Yeah.
Um,
And you can also just write to me with any questions as well.
yeah. For
And Jaime has put my email in the chat, but it's just rod@pilotdigital.com. I'm sorry, Ben,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was just gonna add, for more bigger like GA4 changes, there would be like some cost. People charge all over the map for that, between a few $100s and a few $1,000s, depending on how complex it is. But for like a simple thing, you can follow that blog post.
We're getting questions again about AI's ability to read images. Should we lean
Mhm.
towards more text-heavy websites versus having too many images that AI can't read? And I
Well, I would
think
say
AI can read it.
it can read it, but I think this is important for SEO too. So if a lot of your information is in images, that's bad for multiple reasons. One, it's not accessible. It's bad for accessibility, so bad for humans who have need to use assisted devices. So it's bad from that perspective. Images aren't crawlable by search engines, so it's bad from an SEO perspective. And right now, search engine traffic is like 10 to 1, 20 to 1 of AI traffic. So it's bad for that reason. Um, and AI can read images, but it takes more tokens. And there is some sort of level
Hey,
of
Ben, you might want to explain what a token is.
so when AI processes anything, your prompt, a website, a CSV file you upload to it, it takes tokens to process it. When they kind of ingest information in their training phase, they kind of try to prioritize how they ingest everything. So if you have a lot of images, you you're it's not for sure, but you're reducing the chance that they're going to ingest everything on your website because it's just harder. Um, that's kind of the logic behind the structuring your content too. It makes it easier for them to ingest. Again, this is true for SEO too. There's a facet of the Google algorithm where the top of the page is the most important. Sometimes Google won't crawl the full page or they won't index the full page if it's really long. So there's always kind of this, if you think about, is the site optimized to be ingested by whatever Google or AI? Images make that harder. So there's nothing wrong with images. I'm going to throw out another reason to not do too many images. Site speed. If you have a bunch of images, they take far much more bandwidth just for the browser to download. So you're going to make your site slow as well. So images are great. Images convey meaning. Images can provide, visual cues and design. But there's no reason I wouldn't recommend going image crazy. But again, that doesn't mean you have to use alt text, either. There's always a balance with what you're doing.
Yeah. And a couple of people have mentioned a balance between optimizing for SEO, AI, and for people. Um, Next question. I have a client who is implementing a new website with an infinite scroll feature where the content is populated using AI. Is this the future of website development or a trend? And I would add, or is this a good idea at all?
I'm not quite sure I understand. So as you scroll, the content is created while you're
By
scrolling.
AI, it sounds like.
Sounds terrible. It also sounds like
Terrible
could,
from what perspective?
well, just from a what is this content perspective? Why are we doing this? Why do we need to do this? I mean, that's a
And
question I
it,
would
it
ask.
can't be indexed. It
Well, that's
can't,
the other, it
yeah.
maybe is indexed, but I didn't go into this on the indexability slide, but if your content is rendered in JavaScript, which a lot of infinite scroll might be, it might be Ajax, I'm not sure. It could be implemented in a number of different ways, but if it's implemented with JavaScript, Google could index it because they can render a page in JavaScript, but AI does not render the web in JavaScript. So that's actually a good call out. If you have a JavaScript heavy website, which again, if you're on a major platform, you probably don't, but some like fancy content management systems use JavaScript on the fly. They use React, which is a type of JavaScript, to render the content. That's actually really hard for AI to parse. So in this scenario, it's kind of I'd have to look at it and see like, is it even possible for them to read it? But also why? Like, what is it even saying? Like, as a company, as someone who's a business owner, on my website, I want to control what it says. So why would I let AI generate it on the fly? And I have no idea what it's going to say. To me, that sounds like a
It
not so
sounds
good.
like a nightmare to me. It
Yeah.
sounds like a really bad idea.
Yeah.
Next question is design graphics business. Um, so we have to explain our images on our website. Very good to know. And I'll start with this. And um, a lot of what I think Ben is talking about is having information in graphics. If they are graphics that are intended to create atmosphere and tone, that's different. But if you're putting enormous amounts of information into PNGs, into JPEGs, then you're starting to run into challenges, is I guess how I would say it. Um, is that fair, Ben?
Yeah. Right. Yep. Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
And again, I think like the infographic example we talked about earlier, it's okay to have some information in an infographic. You're not like not doing something bad. But then putting that alongside a post about the infographic, how did you do the research? What is the story behind the numbers? It's kind of win-win because you have the media that you created that you spent time on, but then you also have kind of the backstory as well.
Um, and interior designer saying images of our work are so important. What is your
Yeah.
advice for that situation?
Yeah, you have to have the images. Absolutely. Images in some cases can be your social proof and convey your trust and authority.
Yeah.
Um, you wouldn't want to just have a gallery on a page, you know. I don't, that's not going to convey enough. So, how do you convey what you do, tell your story, show what you do, but also talk about what you do? So, again, I think there's a balance there. An exception would be like, here's this project we had, and you have a small write-up and you have a gallery of images. That's fine. But when you talk about your services, a gallery with a paragraph isn't really going to be enough, I think.
So we have someone who says, probably a nervous LOL, my site is pure JavaScript.
Uh,
No question, just a comment. So any thoughts on that?
yeah, and it's not like all JavaScript is bad, but if the JavaScript is rendered after the page loads, then as far as I understand, AI can't read it. If it's rendered, it depends on how it's rendered. So there's some nuance there. But probably it sounds not ideal.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I believe I've got everybody's questions. If I've missed one, please repeat it. But at this point, I think we are all questioned out. Um, if anybody does have a question, you can probably unmute and ask at this point.
Good point.
I was,
Yeah,
I was, oh, I was just typing, so I'll throw it out there. Jennifer from Ideation Studio, also an interior design firm with a lot of images, and like I don't want the work of a blog to stay fresh, but is there some sort of like counter or something like that that you can put on there, like that keeps it feeling fresh, like how many projects you've worked on, and it like tags on another number? Is there like kind of a simple way to be fresh?
Yeah, probably. I mean, if you're just talking about, we have this section on our site where we talk about the scope and the volume of work we do,
Yeah.
but you have to manage that counter somewhere probably,
Okay.
like what's powering the counter? Is it like a spreadsheet or was it, I don't
Yeah.
know. It's always something like that that makes it, you still have to usually do something.
Yeah, maybe we just can, instead of a blog, like just what we're working on right now and just refresh that more often.
Yeah. You could keep
Okay.
the older, what we've worked on as,
Uh,
as just former examples.
Okay.
Yeah, you wouldn't have to get rid of them every time.
Okay.
Another question, Ben. How does SEO for AI, so AIO, work in conjunction with social media? If I'm writing a white paper and posting on LinkedIn, is that establishing my authority? Better to write on a blog and link to the website versus putting, and I'm adding this, versus putting unique content onto LinkedIn?
So I think LinkedIn's kind of an interesting network specifically because Google indexes LinkedIn, and I'm not exactly certain about all the different models like ChatGPT and Claude, but I'm pretty sure some of them also ingest LinkedIn posts as well. So I would say you could do a little bit of both. I think it's always valuable to have the white paper on your website because this is your platform and you're promoting your platform, and it's going to add value and authoritativeness over time. But posting it on LinkedIn, whether it's the full thing or a modified version, helps as well because that, as I was saying, that authoritativeness, the individual posting it, um, these, LLMs kind of see the relationship as does Google. So I think it's kind of like a both scenario for sure.
Another really good question. What about video and AI?
I don't really know. Honestly, I don't know. I do know, like Google will show YouTube and AI overviews quite a bit, as will other LLMs. So video can show up. Uh, I've seen kind of conflicting stats that Google's a place to be. It shows up really more often than an organic search for AI, and I've seen less often. So I don't know which one is true because we haven't like put together stats of millions of searches ourselves. But I think video in general is a platform that a ton of people engage with. So if you are able to post video, I think that's going to help your company over time, regardless of SEO or AI. I think it's
One
just
thing
a
to always remember is if you post your video to YouTube, YouTube transcribes for the text
yeah.
content for the video that you're producing, but that's Google. I'm not sure about the other LLMs.
Mhm.
Um, so very simple question. Content used to be king. Is it still?
You know, I would say no. It's still, like I was saying, establish yourself as an authority on a topic. I would say though less is more. There's no need to churn out like a post every day. Um, on your blog, that's overkill. Think about like what's really essential for your company to show up for. Map out those topics, map out those subtopics, and really put a lot of attention into those things. How can we be original? How can we put together something unique in these areas? How can we come at it from an angle that no one else has come at it from? It used to be comprehensiveness was a way you could kind of win that war. But with, like I was saying before, with AI, anybody can be comprehensive. So that approach doesn't really work as much anymore. And then the thing I said about your website is your training data. From that perspective, the content is still king because if you don't talk about what you do on your website thoroughly enough, unless people on Reddit are talking about what you do or people in Quora are talking about what you do, AI is going to have no idea that you do those things. So it really is essential to cover those on your website from that perspective as well.
Hey, Ben, this is Deborah Harsh. I own a marketing agency that specializes in science. And content is king only in the sense that it's good content. Content for content's sake has got zero value, and it never had value at all.
Yeah.
And that's
Right.
the case, right? Because
Yes.
we say, if you ask Google the best way to do SEO, they will tell you it's content, but not content for the sake of content. And for us, when it comes to white papers are crucial to lead generation. I'm sorry, but SEO does not get get our clients in our market segments leads, but content can. So if I use white papers as a gate and I want to make sure the SEO engine can read the content. It's not going to read a PDF if it's gated, right? But you can do a paragraph that's a quick summary. We had a client of ours that went to a HubSpot marketing thing, and they said, we just think in the first paragraph, you really got to say what the value is. And she said that she almost spit out her tea because we've been saying that for 20 years as marketers.
Right.
In the first paragraph, who you are, what the value is, I'm not reading any further, and neither is the AI guy or the SEO guys. They're just out.
Yeah.
So it's always about balance for content. It's just that people, like you pointed out, have overdone it.
Well, and as Ben pointed out,
yeah,
anyone can create comprehensive content now just using AI. And so if it's not unique, if it's not a white paper that's breaking ground, those are good examples of content that you're breaking new ground. Do you have another question about pricing? Hang on just a sec, I lost it. Do you recommend listing pricing for service-based companies? And if so, any guidelines for it?
I think if you can, I think it's a good qualifier of people who fill out your forms. A lot of bad leads through your website. Pricing can be a way to just like qualify those leads before they fill out the form. And especially if you're running paid ads, you really want to qualify that traffic quickly so you can optimize your campaigns over time. So I think pricing is good for transparency. It can be difficult. Like we don't post all of our pricing, we post some of our pricing because it's easier than others. But we've been wrestling with that for years. But I would say if you can, try to think of some way to post some sort of pricing or starting at. I think it's just it conveys trust, transparency, and like I said, can help just qualify those visitors to your site.
And as a company that provides services, we know it's very, very difficult to do it at times. Like we have some services where it's just pretty much a flat fee and we can publish them, and we generally do. But a lot of our services are bespoke, and we can't, we can give a range kind of, but then the range may be wrong too. But I want to emphasize what Ben said. If you're spending money on advertising, on any kind of PPC, qualifying quickly, even in the ad itself, can save you a lot of time and optimize your campaigns much more quickly if you can qualify them and say, if you don't have $1,000, go elsewhere, buddy, but in a nice way. I think that's it, and we are basically out of time. So, Jaime, do you want to follow up and let everybody know that you're going to be sending out and where they can get stuff? You're muted, I think, Jaime.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's the most common phrase on Zoom. You're muted.
Yeah.
By the way. Yeah, of course. First of all, thank you so much, Rod. Thank you so much, Ben. We really appreciate you guys, especially you, Rod, having the flu and showing up. I mean, thank you. You're a real warrior there. But yes, I'm going to share the recording and the slides with everybody through the alumni platform. And then I can also share Rod's contact info if anyone is interested. But Rod, any last words? And Ben?
No, just thank you everybody Rod has last words, but I just want to say thank you everybody. We appreciate you all showing up and hope you got some good stuff out of it.
I need to thank Ben because he's the one who keeps me updated on all of this stuff. I do a lot of reading, but Ben is voracious on this and is definitely a leader in this. So thank you, Ben, for all of the evening hours you spend perusing wonderfully fun stuff like
Thanks. Thank you,
geeky
Rod.
topics on AI. So
yeah, and thank you, Jaime, for organizing this.
Thank you both. Can't thank you enough, and hope to see you guys again soon. Rod, feel better. I mean,
thank you.
sending
Thank
you
you.
all the love.
For those of you that don't know me, I'm not naturally a baritone. So.
All right, bye everybody.
All right,
Thank
take
you,
care.
everyone. Have a great day.